It's the economy of death, the death of tyrants. Différance with an A, see the text. Writing is not just phonetic. Spaces between words and in between allow them to be spoken meaningfully, but are not themselves a part of speech. Means writing's not purely phonetic. Speech depends on spacing, which can only exist in graphomatic. Let me ask you a question. How does one speak? Differance is the condition for the possibility, for the phenomena of presence to be, the quintessence for its entrance, Saussure's principle beyond thought and also being. Differance supersedes ontotheological regimes, makes the unconscious possible, but is itself not present, apocryphal. A is the mythical first letter, brims with irony. There never could have been a beginning. Why can't make a fixed chain argument? Something doesn't have to be present or absent. Derrida calls it play, every which way, forever and a day. Can you hear hearing, see seeing? Différance in French has two meanings, one to be distinct, two to differ around. When it's turned into a noun, loses one of its meanings. Usually think sign stands in for a reference, representation for an absence. So have you heard the sign has been deferred? Operates through a delay. Correspondence theory is compelling. If you think writing might destroy thinking, to Plato two-thirds, since it divorces from speech's meaning. Difference representation is through absence, innovates the dichotomy. Consequentially, difference does not equal a sign. Sign is a representation of a presencing, an authority put into questioning, a new beginning. Difference shows something that escapes the meaning of being, of presence. Difference is the movement according to which constitutes a system historical play of differences. To create and disrupt meaning, we talk in meanings that look as though they don't come from the system of differences. The present always retains the mark of the past that never was. Meaning arrives never on time, always too early or too late to be itself, to be what it is. Yet it does what it does. The present's always constituted by times that are not anti-times. Not nothing presents and futures which pass by. Presence and absence by making possible presence and absence at all. Word spacing helps with the analogy of writing. He wants to interrupt speech graphomatizing. Presence presupposes spaces and absences of spacing. The interval conveys time becoming space, and space becoming time. Gap gives the movement place. Derrida says all there is play. We in language are inscribed in its DNA. Derrida is right, can't look at the subject the same way. Derrida's out Nietzscheing Nietzsche. Difference putting presence into question, but not a reputation. Allows an escape from the dichotomy of presence and absence, activity, passivity. Exempt from every presentation, not hidden or absent, but like the unconscious. Place does not seek domination, it's always already past. Never was, but always was already. At play for anything to come to be. Person to question authority. Givenness an entire metaphysics of being. There's no outside the text, there is no presence. Not inscribed in the textual weave of difference. Difference is the effect of play not outside of it. To avoid seeking its unique name is key. Find new ways to think, write, and read, which permit differentiating. This is our new responsibility. Ulysses, we are receiving me. But these are French words, tautology. Miscommunication is always possibility. Expand the subject to take responsibility. The postcard effect is personal, but open for all to see. Communication depends on miscommunication, and therefore needs to be reconceived. Postcard effect means no public-private dichotomy. Yes is only spoken in response to a network that precedes and written emergence of a subject within the network, other than and indifferent to it. Joyce wrote densely folded text, deferring final authority, and inscribed in a network that pre-exists you. First thing that it means, can talk about telephone morality. You are always responsible for how you respond. You're an answer to a bespeak. That's also a bespeak. Gramophone effect commits to memory. Haunting language ethics, subjectivity. How can one have any competency? That which can only be confirmed beyond one's entity. Let's create a meta-language that allows for objective knowledge. Never lost your autonomy, as much as when you thought you'd achieve.